Dennis.
All right.
Go ahead.
So Ron Lichty, I am one of the co-chairs of the Enterprise Agile global community. And while I live in San Francisco and Seattle currently, I was recruited to give a talk at Agile Indy a number of years ago, and it led me to follow Agile Indy's speakers, especially when during the pandemic they went virtual, and discovered that there was going to be this talk on this topic of making Agile tangible for executives. And I thought, nobody in our community has that problem. And so I attended it and found the talk by Dennis Stevens to be really interesting, really insightful, really hopeful. Dennis is one of the founders of Leading Agile, and he serves as its chief methodologist. And he's currently coming to us from Orlando, where he's on site with a client. And with that, Dennis, I'll let you do the rest of your introduction and take it away.
Well, thanks very much, Ron. Hey, it's really nice to see you all tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop here. See if I can get this to work the way I want it to. How's that look for everybody? You can see my screen?
Yes.
So like Ron alluded to, and we can do this conversationally. I've got about probably 45 minutes to an hour's worth of content. As much conversation as you want, it's fine. I hope that this is useful and insightful to everybody. One of the challenges that we pay a lot of attention to in the industry, and that I see in a lot of different places, is we know that we need executives to care about our Agile transformations and participate. But a lot of people are saying, well, how do you get them to support it? How do you get them to care? How do you get them to give us the support that we need? And so I sort of put this talk together to share my experiences and my thought processes with how to get executives to align. There's a really interesting thing that I saw. I was at the Agile conference in Nashville, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and presented at Agile Cincy and did a different talk there last week. But it is so interesting to me how much of the conversation, the topic is about how basically disparaging to leadership and management our Agile community can be. They just don't understand, they get in the way, they make the wrong choices. And then we wonder why they don't participate in helping us solve the problem. So what I really wanted to do was communicate some of the ideas and some of the experiences on how to change that conversation dramatically to get executives to participate in where we're going. If you want to get the slides, text executive to 1-844-414-9981, and Candace has something set up that will magically send you the slides from the talk today. And also my email address is dennis@leadingagile.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Perfectly happy if you'll link into me or send me an email, find time to reply to you. So just to sort of participate in the conversation. The thing that I think we want to sort of agree on, see if this resonates with y'all, is in order for organizations to be successful in the market, they have to be able to respond at market speed sustainably. I think you and your executives would all agree on that. Everybody agree with that? Right? Takes a lot more than Scrum or DevOps or XYZ ops, product ops, Fin ops. It's not just a matter of teaching some practices or some new buzzwords. It's going to take a lot more than installing some practices in our organizations. We've got to get the right teams formed. We've got to get our funding models fitting together. We've got to get investments made. We've got to get alignment and permission to balance capacity and demand, form stable teams. Invest in new technologies, bring in leaders that understand how the organization needs to operate. There's a whole bunch that we have to do, and we have to get executives to support the change that we need to make. And I think there's a thing that we can agree on, is that executives aren't trying to fail. It is interesting to me the thread that we run into where people go, these executives are just deliberately undermining our ability to deliver product. Why do you think executives would be operating in such a way that they're trying to make your organization fail? I think it's an interesting place sort of start really thinking about if executives were reasonable, rational people that agreed with the top 3 things up there that are trying to be successful at their job, then why don't they participate? Any thoughts from the audience why executives don't participate in supporting our Agile efforts?
They have no clue what Agile is.
Yep.
They think it's maybe too complicated, or it's not something that that's their expertise, so let the others do it for them.
I think it's a translation issue. They speak a different language, and we need to speak their language.
Yep.
I think sometimes the executives have risen to a certain level, and what they've been doing has worked for them thus far. And so maybe there's a little bit of reliance on traditional methods for success.
I think executives think they're more strategic than they are tactical, and Agile is probably more tactical.
Okay.
I think they think also it's for the teams. They think it's down at the bottom in the trenches, and they're in their careers now. They don't go that low.
I agree with that.
I
Anyone
think they think it's a thing and it's not a mindset. And so they think it's something that you do rather than that you are. And that's what causes, confusion.
Interesting.
So I see Swapna has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the conversation. One thing that I've noticed is executive, they have their best buddy among the reportee that they have, and they go by the saying that the reportee has to say to them as in terms of Agile, defining Agile for them, and they wouldn't hear anything else apart from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's some things in my experience that don't work that we see in the industry. Just trust the teams. You just need to trust your teams. They'll go figure it out and get the work done. So just let them figure out what they're going to work for, how they want to work. Just be a great servant leader and ask them to go do some stuff and then trust them to go do it. That doesn't work in getting your executive to feel trusted or engaged or supported. It actually sounds like it has that feeling that the executives don't understand and they're in the way. And so we need to just go trust the teams. Y'all ever try just trust the teams? Does it resonate with your executives when you tell them that? How about this one? Just go let the teams decide how they're going to work. They know best, they're closest to the work, let them figure out what they're going to do. We have these self-organizing teams, they'll solve the problem, let them be directly in contact with your customers, and they'll go just figure out the best way to operate. Why does that not resonate with executives, do you think? Why does that not make them feel confident and safe? How about this one? You'll get what you get when you get it. It's too complicated, we can't estimate anything. We're gonna have to do the work and we'll let you know when we're done. Have y'all ever told that to your executives or heard that in our community as being communicated? How about this one? Here are some books you need to read. Like you need to understand our Agile stuff more. Come into our world more. Or you need to start thinking differently. If you would think differently and start modeling Agile behaviors, then this would all be so much better. So it's interesting, none of those things resonate with executives when we put them out there. When we speak to each other in our conferences, we talk about how ridiculously uninformed executives are and how they don't understand the nature of the problem. But I bet there's a gap there in your understanding of what matters to the executive and how to approach him. Is there anything else that y'all have tried to get your executives to buy in that hasn't worked? What's something you've tried that hasn't resonated or worked to bring your executives along? Taking them to Scrum training? Anybody sent their executives to Scrum training?
That actually does work with startup executives, but not so much with big corp executives.
Yeah, when, that's right. It doesn't work with big corporate executives. The leaders we're trying to get to change their models to let Agile work in their organizations.
I'll say one word, metrics.
Oh, interesting. So metrics don't work to get executives to engage, or you've tried it and it didn't work.
Oh, they want every kind of metrics. That's what I've seen.
They do. What they want is they want to be able to trust the system. They want to be able to know that the things that need to happen for the organization to be successful will happen. And they actually want to know how to participate. But none of the guidance that we've given them so far actually tells them how to participate. It doesn't tell them how to think about the problem in a way that helps them achieve what's most important to them. So what I'm going to talk about is 4 areas to really wrap your brain around to get executives to see this as being more of a tangible thing and be willing to support it. So we want to care about what they care about. We want to speak in their language. We want to create safety for the executives, and we want to demonstrate results. We do want to be able to give them metrics. We do want them to behave differently. We do want them to participate in the organization in a more productive way. But we have to start with deep empathy for where they are. And we have to bring them to a shared point of view on how this model will help them achieve what matters most to them. It's not about working for us. It's about us achieving the goals of the enterprise that the executives are responsible for. And this is the best way to operate to achieve those goals. But it's really important that we bring them over there. Andrew Tate's video is distracting. I'll try not to look at it. He's like smoking a cigar and talking in his video here. It's pretty funny. So what are the goals? What are the goals of executives? Like, what are executives really trying to do? They're trying to make money. They're trying to make money for the firm. They're trying to make money for themselves. They're trying to make money or create value for the stakeholders that employ them, that they're responsible for the shareholders or the owners of the company. They care about success in the market. They care about making a brand for themselves, making a difference, building something that's valuable. And they care about the health of the firm. They care about the talent of the people in the organization. They care about our ability to sustainably execute. They care about the organization's ability to meet the needs and create value while making strides towards improving their ability to do that in the future. So executives deeply care about these things. Does anybody disagree with this or have anything to add to what executives care about? It's a tough crowd, Ron.
I think that also one item is just being able to honestly to protect their area of responsibility, their kingdom. That's where I work. I see that a lot.
Yes, I think that falls in the making money for themselves. I agree with that. Why do they care about protecting their kingdom? Like, are they really just so self-centered that all they're trying to do is make themselves successful at the expense of everybody?
Bad culture can cause that.
Yep, true. Yeah, you're right. I think it is making money. They care about their own position where they're at.
Yeah, they care about their brand,
Right.
their success in the market, their making money, and the health of their parts of the organization. They absolutely care about that. But I think it's important for us to really open up our lenses and look at these executives from a point of empathy as being basically good, high integrity people that are operating within the systems that they exist within, and figure out how to connect what we're trying to do to what matters to them. I think that there is a perspective that I think is rampant in our community, that executives are self-centered, closed-minded, difficult people that are intentionally operating destructively to at everybody else's expense for their own gain. I've met very few executives that actually operate that way. It can feel that way because they don't know how to participate. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to talk to an executive about how the things that I can do with going Agile can help them accomplish all of those things. How can we make more money? How can you make more money? We make more money. How can you have success in the market? How can we have success in the market? And how do we deal with the health of the firm and your team and your talent? So some of the things that Agile allows us to do with these smaller, with smaller bets, with the teamwork, with the clarity, with the risk management processes, with all the things that we have built in, we can actually increase the predictability of delivery of value to our customers. Agile, a lot of times, if I've got like a fixed date and some scope I've got to deliver, I can do that better with incremental and iterative delivery, driving risk down early, making trade-offs clearly, articulating the risks, creating tremendous transparency in the trade-offs we need to make. We can deliver value more predictably in an Agile organization than you can in any other way of doing it. I can turn that into increasing the brand of my customer, delivering something earlier, making money for the market, from the market, increasing the likelihood of success for my executive. So that predictability can also lead to this really interesting dynamic of more trust in the organization. I think a major problem between executives and delivery teams, between leadership and technology, often is our lack of predictability leads to low trust and a lot of conflict in the organization. What if we could get executives not to understand Scrum and things like that, but to understand that incremental and iterative delivery, driving risk down early, balance capacity and demand, creates the greatest possible circumstances for us to deliver what we need to when we said we would, and how they can leverage that to be successful in their market. It's about what's in it for them. We can increase quality with Agile. The frequency of delivery and testing, and the testing built into the validation, can create a significant improvement in the amount of time that we're spending delivering things, the reception of the products that we're doing, the cost of supporting the things that we've built. It can help support all of those goals for an executive, getting things out the door faster, reducing the costs of delivery, creating opportunities for innovation and product fit. All of those are things that we can do with Agile. We can talk clearly about how Agile is the best way to do each one of those over anything else that they've done. And they may have said, you know, back in the day, we did this great big waterfall thing, and it was the way to do it. It was the only way to do it. And we can help them understand that when there's high ambiguity and lots of interdependencies, the things that we're doing today are different than what they did before. So the models of delivering that are not the ways to help them be most successful at what matters to them. I have a whole series of talks that I do around creating a trustworthy system, creating a system that executives can trust, that require that incremental iterative delivery, relatively stable teams, creating predictability and increasing quality. These are things that matter to executives and allow them to go talk to the market, not look stupid, and achieve their goals better. But I don't think that we know how to talk to them about how they support that. They don't need to do daily stand-ups. They don't need to think differently. They don't need to be different. They need to support stable teams, balanced capacity and demand, getting really clear backlogs in front of teams, the intentional sequencing of work, so we have optionality and risks driven down early. One of the things that I see in the market is we talk a lot about the how or the what of Agile and not about the why. So connecting the why of going Agile to what matters to the executive is really, really the most important thing. I'm looking at the chat here as well. Carla, state of DevOps and lean metrics have supported us to improve predictability, but it's a challenge. What's the challenge that you're having?
The challenge is about the granularity of our work items, because some teams work with big tasks or work, and other teams work with smaller. And of course that we don't want to compare teams, but sometimes we have some epics that multiple teams work on them. And we are starting to experiment to have the lean metrics, not for the teams, but for the all work that is have been done for an epic or a big initiative in our company. So our challenge is to measure the same thing, the same granularity. This is the challenge that we are facing nowadays.
Yes, there's an interesting thing, and I'll just go into this for a minute, and then if we have some time, I'll go into more detail on the back, but I don't ever expose velocity or points or anything to executives. They don't care about it. I expose how much it's going to cost to get something done and what the benefit's going to do. Now, you can use your velocity and you can use the different sizes of things and all of that to come up with a relative cost, because we have relatively fixed parts of the organization. Here's how much it's going to cost to produce that work.
Yep. But we are not using story points and velocity. We are talking about lead time, that's time to market. This kind of metrics. Quality, deployment frequency. Our metrics are based on the state of DevOps, basically, with some metrics from Lean, like throughput, that we can use to forecast capacity, other stuff for our executives.
So with lead time and capacity, you can always turn it into dollars.
Yes, lead time, capacity, throughput, this kind of information.
Right. So you had said it's creating a challenge for you, though. Those sound like healthy uses.
The challenge is because I work at the Digital Hub at Global. We have around 6 value stream with 108 teams. And actually 2,000 people. So the teams can choose how they want to work, if with Kanban, Scrum, or any other approach. And we decided that we would measure our performance based on state of DevOps and Lean metrics. And we know that for one team is okay, but when we have to have an idea about the lead time of a product or in strategic initiative, we have multiple teams working on that. So if I want to know the time of marketing of a product or a strategic initiative, we have this challenge because the teams are working different granularity. So this is a little bit complex for us.
Yeah, so there's two thoughts here, and I'll move down to the metrics piece. We'll talk some more about it. But I don't know that it makes sense to have all of your teams able to work however they want to work, because if you can't plan across them, that's not.
Yeah, this is our challenge.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be striving for that. I would explain why it needs to be the same in order to get to predictability, because you can't deliver these things on the left. You can't deliver these things on the right or translate them to things on the left when you let every team work however they want to work. There's some immutable things that must be true, and we have to get really, really clear about what those constraints are. I don't think Agile suggests that every team should form. I mean, that's why I said up front, this is why executives think it's foolish. We go, just go figure out and work however you want to. Just go do whatever you want, because as an executive, I can't do what I need to do around funding and budgeting and shareholder value.
Okay.
I think that doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Our prioritization is based on OKRs, so it's very clear what we need to do first. But when I say that the teams choose how to work, is their methodology. Some of them are working with Scrum, another with Kanban, for example.
I wouldn't let them pick their own methodology. We can get into some detail about it. Let me sort of roll forward a little bit, but I don't think that is an appropriate thing to let teams pick. However, I think that there are places where Kanban is appropriate, places where Scrum is appropriate. If I can't get predictability out of my system and I can't deliver in a trustworthy fashion, and I don't make that a priority, I'm not going to get the support of my executives.
I understand, but we usually worked with Scrum. All teams were Scrum, but it wasn't the best approach for some do them.
Yep, there's some work.
So yeah.
Yep. There's
so we decided to try to do something different, and maybe I don't know, but this is our challenge nowadays.
I think I understand the challenge. What I'm trying to do is find a way to connect it back to how to make executives care about it. For today's talk, the challenge is being able to
No. The challenge for our team, but it's not the challenge that we talk with our executives. With our executives, we talk about the metrics, quality, etc. It's the challenge for our team as enterprise agile coaches and agile coaches working with the operation, not the executives. Okay.
Right.
Yes, this is not a kind of conversation that we have with them. This is what our team faces as a challenge to bring the better information and to add value for our executives.
Yeah. So I'll bookmark how you deal with different modes of performance and how you can become predictable, even though everybody's not working with exactly the exact same model. But there are some immutable things that must be true. In our design of our system, we must design the way that teams work so we can be predictable. Teams don't get to operate outside of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing that I think that we lose sight of a lot of times, and this was really, really powerful in Nashville last week, as we were looking at, or 2 weeks ago, as we were looking at the teams, which is executives in all these other areas. Product doesn't understand. They keep trying to shove stuff into our organization. Our strategy group is missing the boat. Budgeting and funding gets the way. Technology and architecture, compliance and controls, our leadership, our talent. All of these concerns on this circle are all things that matter to executives. And we tend to get really tied up in how these things, project management, program management, budgeting, tracking time, tracking costs, building out our epics and features around trying to connect them to some sort of value, are having technology and architecture standards. In a lot of organizations, we talk a lot about these things get in the way of helping us deliver value to our customers because it makes it harder for us to write code and deliver sometimes. But the reality is the executive cares about all of these things. And the language that we want to be able to talk about is how we can help do product management better when we can deliver in small batches and test and validate the customer, do market development. We want to talk about how we can create new methods of tailoring our strategy and our strategy articulation by working with transparency and driving risks down early. We want to talk about how we can actually do better capitalization and create stable budgeting and funding that supports delivery in this model. There's a whole thing, if we don't have a point of view about how to achieve the concerns around compliance control or these different areas that are necessary for the executive to care about through our agile teams, then we're probably not going to have an effective conversation. I go into clients all the time where we're arguing about how the PMO gets in the way of what we're doing. And so we should do away with the PMO, or the standards in technology are foolish, or the way that we budget and fund is stupid. We're not walking in saying budgeting and funding is necessary for organizations to do because we have to spend money responsibly, make commitments about the value we're going to get for the dollars we're spending. These are the concerns that budget and funding are driving. Here's how we can do it better with relatively stable, persistent teams operating in a healthy fashion with incremental delivery and transparency. We can actually do budgeting and funding better in this new model. We can actually do the technology, the fight between operations and the enterprise operations, the people that support applications and development teams that we're trying to address in the DevOps area. It's like really interesting. We think their concerns are foolish, but walking and saying we have to protect our data centers, we have to deploy work in the right way, we have to make the world support performance and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Amanda, we were. I tried to bring it back, so hopefully I have at this point. Without having a deep understanding of how we can accomplish the goals and concerns of these different areas better with our agile organization, then we end up fighting with those parts of the group. So I find these things to be very challenging in most organizations. Most of the silos organizations, there's conflict between these areas. Does that resonate with y'all? Have a point of view on how Agile helps you do every one of these things better. Same as the executive, but also all the other areas of the organization. Because when we walk in saying project management is stupid, strategic planning, long-time strategic planning is stupid. The way that we do product management is stupid. Like we might not say those exact words, but those are in our industry. To walk in and say, here's how I can do these things better with stable teams, with incremental iterative delivery, with lots of transparency, with faster time to feedback. We can accomplish all of these concerns better in the organization. We can have those conversations. We can help the executive partner with building the company that he wants to have, which is trying to respond to the market sustainably at the speed of the market. There's a understanding their concerns and then speaking to executives in their language. I think OKRs are doing well today when they're articulated effectively. But the concept of really revenue is an important part of business. How much are we spending? How much are we getting? I would turn every conversation about velocity or DevOps or throughput or lead time, I would turn it into dollars and have conversations around, have everything wrapped up from dollars as a result standpoint. We get more work with our customers, more things they value, more things that are being used and consumed. We're able to move faster and respond to markets. We won things that we weren't able to win because we did this. All those things tie back to revenue. Our OKRs at a top level should be talking about what problems we're solving for customers in a market that help us win in the markets. We should be having those types of conversations. And there's this really interesting conversation about innovation and value density. For me, a lot of organizations, the cost of IT is going up faster than the total spend of the organization. It's a growing percentage of the organization because we don't take the time to build things right the first time. The way that we manage and run our systems creates a lot of complexity, makes things more and more and more expensive to manage and slows us down over time. By having an executive understand that by working on this agile, in this agile way, leveraging the technologies and great technical practice, all those sorts of things, we can actually spend more of our capacity building things that matter to our customers. So measuring the cost of defects, the cost of maintenance, the cost of regulatory compliance versus the cost of building things that are going to add value to our bottom line. This is a really strong leverage point to get executives to care about investing more in agile techniques because the way that we do things there can increase dramatically our value density. And executives see big, complex systems. We have to speak to them in their language where that matters to them. So revenue is a key angle to talk about. There's a whole concept around productivity that matters to them. This is about the work in the system. Are we putting the most valuable things through? Are we building a system that's reliable and can be predictable that we can count on, that our customers can count on? Are we building something today that will be less complicated in the future so we can continue to manage it instead of more complicated? The way that we want to run this work through our organization can increase productivity today and increase it in the future. It's not about being agile or doing agile. It's about making more money and doing it more efficiently. And the last one is around creating options. One of the top things that executives care about is their talent and the competency of the talent, the ability for the organization to do the things it needs to do to be successful. When we start talking about the bigger picture and how our teams are going to elevate the health and desirability of our firm, that's improving capability. And executives care a lot about that. When we talk about the health of our technology and our ability to move faster in the future in our most important markets, you can't do that without doing work this way. And this concept of the trusted system, every executive is so frustrated. All leaders up in the organizations are so frustrated with the need to micromanage tasks, to track work all the way down, for every problem to be escalated up. We think it's because they want to operate that way. There's no executive in the world that wants to be micromanaging, running every task, responsible for every decision, the bottleneck on everything going through the organization. What they don't know is how to build a system that they can trust to delegate into and get the results out that they want. We actually know how to do that. Stable, predictable teams with clear backlogs, delivering frequently, insight aligned with constraints, escalating the things that get in the way. looking for support from the organization. We know how to build a system that you can delegate into and get the results out of it that you want. If we're using Agile to become predictable, high quality, and able to connect to value more frequently, we're going to build organizations where the people are more engaged, happier. The system, the technology is better and better, and our skills are increasing in our ability to meet with our customers. So these are language. These are things that executives are talking about. None of these are Agile words or any jargon to do. OKR is like the one jargony term on here. But there is a part about leveraging OKRs connected to things that matter, that connect to revenue, that make executives care about the OKRs. I think it's important to write our outcomes as financial, market, sustainability, critical sort of outcomes at the top level that executives support, not an OKR of all our organization is Scrum is not a good OKR. An OKR that says make more money is actually not a good OKR, right? But we can set bounds and then use them to drive all the decisions within it and connect them back up to revenue. Does this speak their language, resonate with y'all? Ron, how am I doing today?
Yeah, great.
Dennis, I think it resonates really well. You mentioned about metrics, so I'm definitely interested to learn more about your thoughts on that among these three items that you have.
Before we move on to there, I would note that while there may not be executives who want to micromanage, I think there are executives who don't know any other way to manage.
Well, I absolutely agree that the only way that most people get things done in most organizations is to create crises, shove things through, and they don't know how to manage differently. I think that is true, but I was on a Facebook thread today with Alistair Coburn and some friends of mine, and Alistair's reading Servant Leadership again. And this discussion that we have all the time around what does it mean to be a servant leader? And I think a critical part in enterprises, goal-seeking organizations around being a servant leader has as much to do with knowing how to build teams that you can lead that way as it does operating that way. There's two sides of that equation. So as Agile coaches, building teams that can be trusted and proving it again and again over time will end the need to micromanage. I don't think the micromanagement came first. I do think that it is how it was the only way to get things done in low trust systems. So
there are people whose only role models have been micromanagers.
Yep.
Who learned to micromanage and never let go of it.
Well, why did they never?
I have been the Agile virus in one of those companies and been fired. And I think did a reasonable job of communicating, probably far from a perfect job, but that manager was insistent on telling us every single day what our whole organization was going to do that day. That's not a communicable. I was glad I left.
Yeah, well, yeah. So that would result in a toxic environment. It would also probably result in an environment that never is going to shift towards moving. I would sit down with that executive, and I would have lunch with them every Wednesday for 2 months, and I would talk about the impact of every decision having to bubble all the way up, and how it created latency in the organization. And so, what would it look like? What would it look like for us to build an organization that you could trust and not have to do that? Because I don't think it's what he wanted to do. It's what he felt like he had to do. Because it's too much freaking energy. And then he's probably frustrated all the time too. So then he was probably in a bad mood all the time too. So he was in a foul mood, telling people what to do, bullying everybody. What a horrible place to live as a human being. Wouldn't it be great if...
Agreed. I definitely did not want to be in the same place with them.
Yeah. So what would it look like for that guy to be different?
Just giving him an organization that would work that way does not change his cultural growing up perceptions that this is the only way to manage.
He has to participate in the definition and implementation of that organization. He has to understand why it's that way. We have to incrementally, iteratively sort of judo flip him into not being an awful leader. And let him own getting there. And so it does happen
He
overnight.
judo flipped me out, so
There
that's.
there you go. Force of wills, right?
Yeah.
So I don't disagree that there are a
And
lot.
power.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that operate that way. Some of our magic as coaches has to be to figure out how to move those people, or just leave. Because eventually they'll die off, and we'll have a next generation of leaders that don't operate that way. But I think it is important to get those individuals. And Ron, I've had success with a lot of very horrible leaders in the past. And I would suggest that I probably, coming as a staff sergeant, coming out of the Marine Corps, didn't know how to lead the way that I lead today. So I probably learned some stuff myself over time too, right? But what it means to lead differently. Although I will tell you that if you think command and control in a small team environment works, you've never been a 19-year-old leading 17, 18-year-olds into a scary position. They're behind you and armed. Like command and control doesn't make that absolutely work. So there is some leadership that I learned younger, but you can't dictate to everybody all the time what to do to get them to follow you, right? But there is an awful lot of instilling what does it mean to build great teams that you can trust. And I do believe that most executives want to build teams they can trust and don't know how to do it. We know how to do it. That's the participation in the conversation. Try to elevate it up. All right, I'll go talk about metrics here a little bit. Well, I think I've got one more section, and then metrics, Gopal. One of the things, and this is kind of where I was going to, one of the things I really want to do with executives, Ron, it's the sort of a segue, but what we were just talking about is help executives see how they will contribute to moving the organization in the right direction. So align on the reason and start with empathy. What are they trying to solve for and what matters to them? This is the coaching path. Well, my slides aren't working right. Co-design the next steps with them, have them participate in envisioning a future and work with them to design, become their trusted partner in designing the next steps to connect to their point of view that you help them form. Devise a credible plan for making those changes, typically incrementally, iteratively, very, very small. If you've seen my influence trust talk or any of that content, this is like that secret, very intentional move of bringing people to a new, safer place. And the last one is agree how to demonstrate progress, always in the language of gain. I think with these hostile managers, we're often doing language of loss. We have to learn how to say no. You have to say no to you. We have to, you're not going to be able to tell us what to do anymore. There's a whole language of loss that we use. And I think moving it towards a language of gain is a big part of getting executives to feel safe in moving in this new direction. And sometimes we're looking for, sometimes we're looking for our executives to know, yeah, I don't know that he didn't create it. Doug, I'm gonna get him to do it differently. I'm gonna get him to shift his thinking to what the system has to be like for it to operate effectively by understanding where he's coming from, what he needs, and then shaping his point of view and designing what would it look like to not have to manage. Here's what these teams work like. Creating safety with a plan for getting there. Let's go to a small slice. Let's measure the value and move there and helping them become partners in co-conspiring to create this new organization. They will understand and support it. And this isn't about, we should be able to do this without using any agile jargon or any small stuff. It's about creating an organization that you can trust and operate within. So this is the coaching that we want to do to get people to support an agile organization.
Hey, Dennis, I have a question to ask you
Yep.
about the last like 20, 30 minutes of this talk. Are you assuming that someone at a lower level is bringing this agile consultant in to convince the executive, or are you assuming the executive recognizes that there's an issue and is asking for help?
That's a great question. Let's say the executive is not asking for help. We're trying to do something. We're totally blocked by our executives. They're really busy. They don't pay attention. They're getting blocked. So let me get through the metrics, but what do you do in that case to begin to expand your sphere of influence to get the executive to care? What's the storytelling that you do? Because we almost never get brought in. I've never been brought in by the CEO to start with, or at the top level to start with. The goal is, how do you make it credible to them over time and help them move in the right direction? What is the sort of jujitsu, little shifts of movement that we can do to increase our influence and move up? Because often that leader is setting a tone that hurts the team below him, that hurts the team below him, that hurts the team below it. Now, I will say, you might have to go influence, if you're a scrum master, you might have to go influence a line manager and then help arm the line manager with a story to tell. And then the line manager, because there is hierarchical stuff, they're not going to let just every scrum master go in and talk to the board and begin to shift them. But I think that operating within the constraints imposed by the organization and believing that it's impossible to enlist executives is a problem. I would go give this talk to my CEO, my centers of excellence. Take it and tailor it for yourself and go give it to your centers of excellence. Start a movement toward engaging and understanding your executives and bringing them to the right place, and judo flip your way up the stack. This isn't something you're going to do in 10 minutes. Was that responsive?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a journey, right?
Absolutely.
But man, when I'm sitting there in Nashville and every talk is how stupid executives are and how they try to undermine everything and how they're just awful people. Like, if our community doesn't change their topic and their understanding and their perspective, we're never going to move them in this direction. Yeah, I think that's right. The comment is that some executives thrive on management through fear, and I think that's true. You know, I think in my career, in hundreds of companies, I've seen 2 or 3 people that were absolutely impossible to move in a positive direction. I don't think it's common. And I think that unless they're very, very high up in their organization, I think that their peers hate them as well. And they tend to get ferreted out pretty quickly. Now, in Ron's case, that person was there. You clearly have an experience with someone. The comment was, some older execs firmly believe in management by fear. There's no talking them out of it. I agree that's not the majority, but there are still some. In that case, there's no way to create safety. The only way is their direct reports become the shield for their teams. I just can't wake up every morning thinking that is the cross that we have to bear, and we have to operate, and all executives are awful and want to manage by fear. I just don't think that that's actually true, but I do think it colors a lot of our organization. I do think that there are some bad managers out there, and we'll never move them. But I don't think it's the majority of them. I don't think it's close to a significant number of them. I think it's mostly the result of us operating in an untrustworthy way, and in like the language we use and the way that we talk about it and how we present the options and how we create the offers for the next tier up. I don't think we're good at thinking about how to move them to a safer place in general in the industry. Some people certainly are very, very good at it. Did you have a thought, Doug? You're on mute.
I'm just curious, is it possible that a lot of these executives just aren't used or accustomed to working with knowledge workers? Because it's different, right?
Yeah, of course. A lot of the problems are management theory from 1950 was largely based on serial processes, and they don't know how to operate differently. But
Correct.
we do. But we can't go and start telling them how to do it differently and even competently telling them how to do it differently until we've brought them into being interested in having the conversation. And they're not going to do it because it's better for us. We have to get them to do it because it's better for them. So how do we begin to get them?
Understood.
How do we get them to shift? Like, that's what the topic is. And this is as coaches, this is not the prevalent line of thinking in our industry. They're stupid. They're running the wrong way. They're managing wrong. They don't want to do it. I think the shift is, I think most of them would like to do it better. A lot of them are reading the books and trying stuff, and they go do some agile stuff, but we do it wrong and it doesn't work, and it actually sets us back because we don't go and help them do it. Solve it. So I actually think that there's a cycle of sociology involved in what we're doing about making this matter for executives That's about creating safety for them, achieving their goals, using their language, creating safety for them. All the things that we're actually sort of acting like we think they should be creating for us as coaches. I'm going to pivot it and create safety for them. I'm going to think most of these people desperately want to do this job better and have no idea how to do it. But I'm not going to tell them they're stupid. I'm going to go explain how this helps them achieve what they need to achieve more and more. I do think we dismiss a lot of concerns of executives, a lot of the challenges that people run into, like the battle between PMOs and budgeting and accounting and operations and IT. Like a lot of those things are, we know better than you, you should work with us. That might not be you, but that's very prevalent in the way that we approach the conversations as well in our industry.
So I agree with you, Dennis. I was the one who actually typed in that comment about
Yeah.
the older executives.
Yes.
And I completely agree with you. I never thought that executives are stupid. I became one myself after moving up the chain, which I wasn't trying to. And the reason I get to move up the chain is exactly because of all the stuff that you talk about. I was empathizing with them. I talk in their language. I actually solve the problems for them. So they gain trust. So it's like, oh, she can actually help me solve some of my problems. So maybe I should listen to what she has to say and give her a try.
Yeah.
The problem is, and that is actually very, very high level executive, is actually C-level, directly reporting to the CEO. And unfortunately, CEO also think the same way, is management by fear. I have long talks with them, and it's because of their brought up, their upbringing, their background, where they came from. And you just no talking them out of it. So the only way, and I'm actually curious if you have any suggestion, because the only way that I was able to do is get their direct report, which is still very high level, because this is not a startup, this is quite a big enterprise, to actually, they are more interested in the newer way of doing things, and they don't really like management by fear. So what I was able to do is to have their direct reports to actually become a shield. Although I also told them, this is the cost, because now you get your boss like blasting on you, and you need to be the channel how to do this. So I'm curious. Eventually, I actually left that company after 7 years. So I know them very well. So my curiosity is there a way to even help those older executives? I mean, I helped them in a lot of ways already, but I wasn't able to do this one particular, like creating safety. That's not it. So eventually I had to leave because it's not a sustainable environment, and their direct report eventually burn out. I mean, you can only be a shield for so long. So do you have any suggestions?
So I got fired by a guy that later ran AT&T about 20 years ago because I told him that his entire staff was lying to him. They were telling him something could get done because they were afraid of him. And he got mad and he threw a binder at me and told me to get the heck out of his office and never come back again. He called me 2 days later back into his office, and he said his entire staff had been lying to him and he had no path out of it. This guy never became a nice human being. Right? He never became a nice human being, but we were able to pivot his mode of accountability to one that was based on setting constraints and let the system operate, and created enough room for him to get the insights that he needed in order to make better decisions. What I did was I pivoted on his behavior, blocking his ability to get the information he needed to be this great executive. So I think there's a difference between, and you know, just pragmatically, sociologically, tons of obstacles to you being able to get that guy to listen to you.
There's also a difference between being an employee reporting to that person and being a consultant.
Yep.
And having made that pivot.
Yep.
It's a wonderful thing being a consultant.
Yeah.
Because eventually they're going to fire you anyway. So they might as well fire you now for telling them the truth.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So maybe the trick is you bring in a consultant that will tell them the truth, but you back it up with data. Hey, Christian, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. I really love this picture around creating safety. I've just jumped in. I was at work, and I thought I'd maybe share my experience because this really resonates. I've been working for the last 3 months with a team of executives and their C-level leader. on bringing them along a journey of implementing a new operating model. And certainly the challenges and the mistakes we made in the beginning was around not being transparent enough with them around the work and what we were going to do. And what they really, really wanted was to be involved and to co-design and to be part of the journey and part of the learning journey. And so once we got that out of the way, now we've got, a team of leaders, and they're all at different levels of, agile knowledge, as well as where they are with their mindset, but at least in and aligned under what's important about doing this and what needs to shift for them, but also, from my perspective, I'm an agile enterprise coach. I work very closely with the people that, running the business case. Essentially, it's understanding the financial outcomes and challenges that they're also facing, and the benefits they want to reach from the transformation itself. So really being able to balance that, I think, is really important. And being what really worked well was you assume that a team of executives who work together is somewhere aligned around the outcomes and what they want to achieve, but they're not. So we needed to get really, really crisp and clear, even with their leaders, with the C-level executive, to make sure that we had actually some sense of what are the top 3 priorities and alignment, what we're aligning under, what are we actually wanting to achieve. And so I think one of the things I learned definitely is, first of all, everyone's just a person, and they all got their own experiences and hang-ups and stuff. And whether you're a head off or a C-level, we want to be able to create a space where they can collaborate and can more be themselves and create that safety for them, and allow them to, not always have to be perfect and have all the answers, and be able to explore a bit more. And that's really where we're at now, where we particularly framing collaboration sessions and working together. And so, help them see how they will contribute to the plan. So it's not done to them, because that builds resistance straight away. That's really what we had. A lot of resistance. They thought, we're going to come with this ta-da, thing. I'm a 1-year contract person in there to help out and coach them. But I think, I'm so glad to see this, because that's really resonates and really sticks to sort of exactly where I see when we're working with groups of leaders, what we need to do. So I'm really glad I just jumped in here to learn from you, and also to see that this is, maybe some confirmation with getting I'm on the right track with what we're doing and how our approach is. So thank you so much. That's really what I wanted to share here.
Thank you. And I think you said a really cool thing, Christian, that actually goes to Manway's question, which was making the system self-revealing. They're not on the same page. How can I make it evident to an executive how his behavior is harming his ability to achieve his goals? Is like an important part of the transparency of the system. But how can you do it in a way that it's in language of gain instead of a blaming? There's some real craft. There's some real craft having those conversations. But I think that's the next trick, Manway, is to get is to present the impact of those behaviors on that executive's ability to achieve their goals.
So so I'm an organizational systems coach. I've done ORSC, and I think if anything's changed my career, that has. Because it is that revealing of the system to itself and the impact of the system and the individual's contribution to the system as a whole, and how that shifts and changes, and those micro shifts that you can do through those facilitated sessions where you build a lot of safety. Like you speak in my language. I think that's something I think every coach, if you want to work at the exec level, needs to get into, is working with systems, not just systems in terms of structures, but systems of groups in the relationships they're built.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. All right, let me talk about the metrics just kind of real quickly on demonstrating results. I think there's 2 flavors of results that we really want to measure into. One of them is connecting to value. So work's connected to OKRs, we're closing capability gaps, our throughput and quality and reliability metrics are improving. So we're showing how we're getting more of what we need to be successful in things that we care about as executives. And then we can connect that up to the changes that we're making, progress on the roadmap that we built together, transparency into the work, calling our shots and building influence. This is the work that we're doing, but that work always has to be connected back to the value, and then showing that changes in values being delivered was a direct result of the change that we did. So it's just this building this cycle of influence with the organization to get them to listen. I really liked what Christian was talking about, elevating her way up through the organization by playing her hand. It was Munway, I think, that I said that by moving up, by playing this game. I think that this is sort of the progress to it. I do have a deck, Gopal, on like metrics of 3 different kinds. I don't have that in this, like the actual metrics presentation is a whole different presentation, but they tie back to these things, which is showing progress of the changes we're making in the organization, showing that we can influence the behaviors and the competencies of the organization with the work that we're doing, and showing how those improvements drive value that the executive cares about. So tying it back to those 3 areas that the executive cared about at the beginning. So I'm measuring and managing results using language that they care about. I am tying the plan back to what matters to them. We're building a plan to go make those changes and drive those results. We're demonstrating those results, and then we're ensuring that the business is engaged in the plan, and that the work that we're doing delivers on the business case. This is sort of the putting together strategy. What I think is interesting, one of the conversations was, are you doing this at a C level? When I first started doing this work in most organizations 20 years ago, I was never at the C level. Leading Agile was always coming in like at a director level or VP level early on. We've learned how to rapidly escalate up the stack using this thinking and these approaches, with this sort of thing of work with them to build a vision that fits to what matters to them, create safety for them around how we're going to go do it, go and do it and prove it, help them escalate, and then help them elevate the organization, help them be successful organization, and then do what we said we were going to do every time. This becomes a cycle that runs again and again and again that allows us to elevate up in the organization. Yeah, I'll get you guys, Candace, just make a note on the metrics presentation.
Okay.
For Gopal, and we'll send that up. So that's my hour of content. I think I had exactly 1 hour, Ron.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll take questions or any conversation or feedback. I think it's interesting to be sitting there going, I don't know how to go have this conversation with my CEO. I think that's perfectly okay. I think you work your way up the stack and you leverage the relationships and the influence of people as you move up the stack. I think that's kind of the game, or bring in a really good consultant to have the conversation with your CEO for you. That's another, that one works pretty well as well. That was supposed to be funny. I tried to make Ron laugh, but he didn't laugh.
Hey, can we, Dennis, I'm in Australia. Is there a WhatsApp number, or can you email it? Like when you said text to this number.
Yeah, put your email in the chat.
No worries. Thanks.
And Candace will get it to you. Is that correct, Candace? You still on?
Yep, I'm still here. I'll send you an email with the deck.
Thanks, Candace. I'll put it. Shall you send you a direct message?
Sure, that's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we should have this number in a WhatsApp as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time. If there's any questions, I'll take them, or we can wrap it up. Worthwhile use of an hour?
Certainly is for
Yes,
me.
good. Thank you. I only got caught out of it, so I'm keen to see the beginning of it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can tell you, Dennis, it was really helpful for me. Thank you so much for the hour. It's the language that makes a difference. It's the connection that makes a difference. And what you bring together is things we do, but basically how to, connect it to the right people. And that's extremely important. And, how you put that together into the 3 categories, it was very helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So have a great evening or afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dennis, do you have time for, I come from a very, very small company. very small. And in that, I think it's traditionally that the C-suite, they're so busy and they really consider most of, agile stuff to be operations oriented. So it's nearly impossible to get attention with that respect. What do you recommend to be able to resolve that?
So I'll give you like 3 strategies that I might try to play to get the audience, but I'd be really, really clear. We talk about access, empathy, point of view, and safety on the influence side of it. I'd be really, really, really thoughtful about what I'm going for and what offer I'm going to make to prove it when I got in the room. I would try to set up a lunch and learn. I would go to somebody in the organization that I trust with, and I would say, I want to do a lunch and learn for the executives for 1 hour, or I want to get into the next executive roundtable and educate them. Because if I said to my executive almost exactly what you said to me, Audrey, I think this agile stuff is way more valuable to you solving your problem than you understand. I understand why you look at it we do and the way that we've talked about it, how it's been presented to you. Would you make an hour and I'll pay for lunch or whatever. You got to eat lunch. Would you make an hour for me to sit down and talk about how Agile helps you do the things that you need to do? We have a white paper called Why Agile Fails and What to Do About It. The very first section is about the benefits case. It's those 6 bullets of benefit. And it talks about how Agile helps achieve those 6 things, right? And how that connects to what matters to them. Like, let me tell you what we're talking about, why I think this is so important. If we do this right, we can get you to be able to make and keep promises with your customers every time. Like, we know how to do that. We can increase the engagement of our teams with the problems they're solving and make them care about it more. We can deliver with higher quality faster. Like, there's just math here, but you have to be able to explain it to them from like an operations research industrial engineering standpoint, not from an agile Michael Cohn sort of standpoint, right? But explain to them why working on 2 things and finish them is way faster in knowledge work than working on 60 things at the same time. Having relatively stable, persistent, stable teams that stay together is way better than working on 15 projects at a time. Like, pull some anecdotes. Remember that time that we had that crisis and everybody rallied around it and we solved that thing really fast? Like, we're talking about generally building an organization that operates that way most of the time. So thinking about their language, their problems, what matters to them, and not saying any language of law stuff. That disparaging thing about the project managers are bad, or the way your annual planning stuff is so stupid, or your roadmaps are so stupid. Like, I don't know if you use any of that language, but we hear that, and they're trying to balance a whole set of competing concerns. You're trying to elevate it up to the way that to a thing that you have to do all of those things better. And I would really thoughtfully plan like that lunch and learn. Like, that would be a tactic that I might use. I might find out a way to start using metrics really effectively and make some things self-revealing. The inability to do things iteratively led to this cost overrun. I'm going to a second tactic now, but I would start looking at the metrics that I can produce to juxtapose where we're able to do Agile against where we can't. We literally have a client with 2 different teams. This is a real story that we just did recently, where one team was operating ineffectively in Agile. One team was operating effectively in Agile. They actually had a relatively stable team. We're doing all the work to get their backlogs ready. This team was just sort of self-organizing around whatever they wanted to work on, completely disconnected from the business. Lots of conflict in this part of the organization. They weren't hitting their dates, like all kinds of things. But and there was some perception that it was relational, and it kind of was, but it was relational in that this team wanted to be autonomous with no accountability. Not that there was really like an ineffective manager there. They were solving the problem the wrong way. So we showed how this team doing the same stuff versus this team was getting results. This one wasn't. And the basic result was the way they were operating. It's not who's smarter. It's not a hard problem. It's not, it was the way they're operating. We used data to like reveal that and got them to have a conversation with us about why can't we do this over there. That got to the relational thing, the individual that didn't want to operate that way. but it wasn't personal. It was a system understanding. So we use data to make it self-revealing and let
Mhm.
them reach their own conclusions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. You've given me an idea. It's not going to be an easy one, but I'm going to think about this a little bit more.
My third one would be to draw my influence map, my influence network,
Mhm.
and find out who listens. Because sometimes in organizations, even
Mhm.
small groups, hierarchy kind of matters. So you can probably talk to people at your level and one above you and be listened to. But there's somebody at level above you that can talk to people one level above them. And there's somebody at that level that can talk one level above them. I might try to start putting together my roadshow with my little story and try to
Right.
navigate my influence network to, and maybe to the point of getting that data presented to them or getting that lunch and learn scheduled.
Right.
Or
Right.
to
I
get,
think I'll have to
to-
probably do that first.
try to get
build-
somebody with that story, but navigate that influence network very intentionally.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, let's give a round of applause to Dennis. And you've got a bunch of thank yous in the chat as well, Dennis.
Thank you, everybody. Really enjoyed it. Great group. Very cool thing you've got going on here.